All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the NOAA EBM EBFM seminar series. My name is Tony Marshak. I'll be doing introductions today, subbing in for Peg Brady, who's on travel. Before I get to introducing Amie, I'd just like to mention a few things. Our next seminar in this series will be on January 8th, given by Sarah Gachis from the Northeast Fisheries Science Center, and entitled There is No I in EAFM, Adapting Integrated Ecosystem Assessment for Mid-Atlantic Fisheries Management. And so for logistics, if folks in the room could please hold your questions until the end of Amie's presentation. And for those listening online via a webinar, you're all logged into the chat. However, you'll also be on mute. So you won't be able to ask any questions verbally, but please use the question panel that's available, and we'll be sure to get to your questions at the end of Amie's presentation. So with that, allow me to introduce Dr. Amie West, who is today's speaker. Amie is a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science, focusing on coastal ecosystem-based management strategies and implementation. Previously, Amie worked as a TMDL developer for the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. And in 2016, Amie earned her Ph.D. from the University of Arkansas Environmental Dynamics program, where her dissertation work focused on freshwater ecology and human perceptions of the environment. And with that, I'll let Amie begin her presentation, which is entitled Regional Research Needs for Coastal Marine Ecosystem-Based Management, Messages from the Practitioners. Welcome, Amie.
Thanks, Tony. Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here today. I'm going to talk a little bit about a project that we are working on at the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science, looking at ecosystem-based management, the strategies, implementation progress, and where we might be able to focus research to fully integrate the more holistic views of ecosystem-based management. So this project is ultimately going to become a report to NOAA suggesting what we're hearing and what we're hearing from practitioners and in the literature about what might be holding ecosystem-based management back and what specific science can really make a difference in moving ecosystem-based management forward. And we're really trying to better understand how to do this and how to do it well. Part of this project has a multitude of sort of methods that we're compiling this information through. Starting with an online survey, which is something that I'm going to talk a lot about today. I think it's really kind of interesting to hear from you guys, and so I'll be able to share some of your input or your colleagues' input. We've also done some telephone interviews, some informal interviews, so chatting with you guys at conferences. This seminar will help me gather some information, I'm sure. We've also done a review of regional management plans, some ecosystem-based management plans, as well as just research strategies, etc. The literature, of course, and then following up with expert review of the compilation that we send out. So we built this ecosystem-based management definition that we put out in our survey as the operational definition for survey respondents. So ecosystem-based management is an interdisciplinary approach to environmental management, consists of a multitude of interconnected processes, environmental, social, and economic trade-offs associated with actionable goals for restoration. And all of this is done with the goal of a healthy, productive, and resilient ecosystem. And this is kind of an abbreviated definition of ecosystem-based management, which I'm sure many of you are very familiar with, for our survey responses. So we asked them, is this a goal in the work that you are doing? And overwhelmingly, we heard, yes, it is. In some cases, it is a goal, but it is not yet being used. And in many cases, 159 cases here from 217 responses to this survey, yes, ecosystem-based management is a goal in the work and it is currently being used. So who did we talk to? We talked to scientists, resource managers, policymakers, and environmental advocates. You can see here we got quite a few scientists and resource managers. This is our target audience, so this worked out well for us. These are the people that we wanted to get information from about their needs for ecosystem-based management. What you're looking at here is each dot represents a location described in our online survey. See our Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, South Atlantic, Gulf of Mexico, West Coast. The mainland here is really well represented in our survey responses. And then Alaska, Arctic, the Pacific Islands, the Caribbean. We could use a little bit more data here. So if any of you listening are from these areas and would like to participate, please get in touch with me. We can never have too much information, right? So after asking our respondents to tell us what location they're working in and describing a specific area within the region, we asked them what were the important issues in that location. And the graphic you're looking at here is on a national basis. Water quality, habitat integrity, and coastal resilience came out on top, right? This is probably not very surprising for us. However, we asked about these 8 issues, knowing full well that we categorize our issues differently. Each person will. So following this question, we also asked what other issues are either extremely or very important in the location you're describing. So what you're looking at here is the words used in all of the responses, 128 responses to that open-ended fill-in text question. So 128 people felt strongly enough that we did not list all of the issues. So climate change and fisheries came out as very commonly described. So this is not really a surprise, right? These are issues that we kind of thought may have been described in the ones that we listed, but people believed that they were distinct. And so we are moving forward with this work, keeping climate change and fisheries, among other things, a little bit more distinct than we previously anticipated. Another question was, what do you need more of to successfully implement ecosystem-based management in this location that you're describing? So the graphic here on the right side, the green is they agree that they need X, and the yellow side is that they disagree. So this is not all that surprising. We'll see we need more meaningful interaction, more science, more management, more monitoring, right? We talked to a bunch of scientists and resource managers, so it's not a surprise that we need more science and more capacity for managing resources. I want to draw your attention, though, to the bottom. Ecosystem-based management is successfully being implemented. And you see a majority of our respondents are either disagreeing with this statement or at least not agreeing or disagreeing. And I think this is notable because we saw how the majority of our respondents were saying ecosystem-based management is something that is a goal in their work. It is also something they are actively doing in their work. However, most of them are not considering it successful yet. So why is this? So another question we asked was, how do these following aspects influence ecosystem-based management in the work that you do? And I've broken them up here in science, institution, and people brackets, but they were not broken up this way when it was presented to the survey respondents. So this top category is science. The majority of our respondents are telling us that science is generally supportive of ecosystem-based management, right? Those are the green bars on the right side of your screen. Ecosystem-based management is being supported by our knowledge, our scientific knowledge. This is good. Stepping down to institution, you see this is weighing a little bit on the hindering ecosystem-based management side. Resources, institutional structures, this is probably not a surprise to many of you either. And then stepping on down to these more people aspects, stakeholder dynamics, particularly here, political will is considered by the majority of our respondents as hindering ecosystem-based management progress. So we see that there is room for improvement on various different levels for ecosystem-based management. So we wanted to ask our respondents a little bit more about that information. So we asked, what are the non-science barriers to ecosystem-based management? Keeping in mind, the goal for our project is to identify the science needs for ecosystem-based management. However, we also wanted to know, even if we have really, really great science, really thorough science, where else might we need to make some changes to facilitate ecosystem-based management? So here, again, probably no surprises. Resource commitment, political will, governance structures, these aspects that require a lot of complex cooperation are holding back maybe progress in ecosystem-based management. But I think this is summed up well by one of our respondents' quotes saying, resources to successfully cross boundaries and fully involve stakeholders. So again, going back to that definition of ecosystem-based management, we pulled out 5 key ideas of what we sort of conceptualize as this larger holistic view of managing coastal marine areas, and asked our respondents to tell us about the relative difficulty of these elements. So what you're looking at here is the darker colors refer to a higher rank in difficulty, right? So 5 is the most difficult to achieve, and the lighter colors, a 1, the lighter colors on the right are easier to achieve. These 3 elements in the middle, evaluating trade-offs, understanding interconnected processes, and interpreting healthy, productive, and resilient ecosystems, these are among the easier parts of ecosystem-based management to achieve, according to our respondents. But you can also kind of see a connection here with the science. The science really can help us answer these questions. Whereas these other 2 elements that were considered more difficult by our respondents, successfully implementing an interdisciplinary approach and developing actionable goals, these are things that require broader cooperation outside of just the science, right? We can have the science and we can have the ability, but putting all of that together seems to be something that's a little bit more difficult. So getting back to the ultimate goal of this project is to answer, what is the critical science that will enable or enhance ecosystem-based management, given a strong managing structure? So we asked this question as a fill-in our survey. And what you're looking at here is the size of the box is the relative number of times this key idea was part of the response. So we have gone in and coded all of the responses, and these are our keywords, key themes. You'll notice socioeconomic impacts of management actions, and actually right to the right of it, ecological impacts of management actions. And if you combine these 2, you get a big chunk of our respondents' requests. So this is a huge idea that I think we want to key in a little bit more, is that we're hearing from our respondents that we need to know more about what we've been doing and how it's going. Other critical science themes were climate change, fisheries, food web dynamics. These are things that we, on a science basis, there are still a lot of unanswered questions. And so something that we are doing with these critical science ideas is trying to integrate our responses on a regional basis to better identify what are these big ideas, these big themes on a regional basis. So for example, here, we've pulled these ideas based on the regional responses. So you're looking at here, Gulf of Mexico on the left, Mid-Atlantic on the right. You see the priorities, the very similar ideas, but in Mid-Atlantic, fisheries rises to the top as a really critical idea, whereas in Gulf of Mexico, you definitely have fisheries as a main idea, but perhaps the impacts of management actions is a little bit more important to them at this moment. So, and then I definitely want to put the caveat in here that this is a project in process. So we're still trying to identify and integrate all of this information together. But what we've done so far is create this hierarchical idea of national level themes. So something that we realized coming out from each of the regions and on a national basis was a need for natural science as a base, as integral to what we need to progress toward, but also social ecological systems science, where you really pull in that natural science, but also integrate the social sciences and understanding trade-offs. And then human interventions, right? This is where we would put in those impacts of management actions or those possibilities, things that we might be able to do. And then resilient science, which is going to capture all of those three things and be the ultimate goal toward the ultimate goal of ecosystem-based management. So for example, on the natural science side, these are things, these are the bullet points here, kind of generic examples of what we would put in our natural science themes, things like habitat structure, biogeochemical connectivity. In the social ecological systems bracket, we might want to better understand how to influence behavioral change toward resilience or toward conservation, but also, new ideas to support stakeholder engagement, gathering information, traditional ecological knowledge, and again, effects of ecosystem-based management, like what have we done and how is it influencing people in the environment. Down to human interventions, we're looking at EBM effectiveness. How is it going? What are we doing? What can we do better? And how can we really build the capacity in our governance structures and our institutions to do a better job? And then finally, resilient science, right? This is the place where we would put some space for people to think of things that may have not even been thought of yet. Like really giving some space to say, okay, what's a new idea and how can we ensure resilience through the processes of human interventions, understanding better the social ecological systems and the natural science. So ultimately what we're getting at is what we are hearing from the practitioners, from you, the scientists, the policymakers, the resource managers that are out there on the ground. We're hearing that you want to better understand change in the environment based on climate change, natural processes, but also change based on things that we've done or will be doing. We're hearing that you would like some support for innovation. Naturally, this is going to be financial support, institutional support. These are places where we need resources to really kind of push the boundaries of our science and management. And then we're hearing that you need more cooperation across agencies, across different disciplines, and obvious things like across state lines and things like that, just and with stakeholders, right? Just generally more cooperation among everyone. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions, comments, suggestions, and I'm going to send it back over to Tony to facilitate these questions.
All right, thank you, Amie. We really appreciate that. That was a very nice presentation. I'll open up for any questions that we have in the room. And if you could please introduce yourself before asking your question.
Hello, my name is Ellen Spooner, and I am the Communications Specialist for NOAA's Integrated Ecosystem Assessment Program. Hi, Amy. Thank you for a very informative and interesting presentation. I believe we met at the SURF conference. But my question for you is, how did you guys identify and decide who you were going to send or who you sent the survey to?
So this was done initially. I went through and identified regional level scientists based on the plans or the regional plans that I was reading. People that were involved in writing plans, also in some of the regional organizations. I identified these people, the scientists working on these things, and I went in and sent out about 800 individual emails. And this is on a national basis. But then we also sent out invitations on 3 different listservs. So ultimately went out to tens of thousands of people, right? So it's kind of hard to say what our return rate was at that point.
Okay. Any other questions in the room?
Thank you, Amie. This is Marina Timofeeva with Climate Services in National Weather Service. And I was very interested to know we're developing coastal capabilities in our tools. And I wanted just to find out if you have some specific maybe requirements or statement of needs that you can extract from your surveys results from your respondents. Specifically, what kind of climate physical elements in climate change people are interested, like changes in temperature, precipitation is given, but what are the other, maybe ocean, maybe land, what kind of other physical elements they are interested? Thank you.
Right, that's a really good question. And it's something I think we're just starting to dig into. One thing about our online survey was that we didn't really have a way to regulate how detailed our responses would be. And so in some cases, we may have a response that says simply, we need more information on climate change. And in some cases, we'll have people considering ocean acidification, sea level rise, temperature, right? And so I haven't been able to yet really identify maybe one of those that might be overarching. But now that you mentioned that, I definitely will kind of key into something like that. Yeah, so that's one of the problems with our survey, I think, is that different levels of detail in the response. So this is where we go into the regional planning documents and the literature to really kind of pick out some of the bigger, more detailed ideas that maybe we didn't get from our survey.
Thanks. Excuse me. Thanks so much, Amy. We do have a few questions online. So the first is from Shannon Martin. Was ecosystem restoration part of the EBM actions or plans in your survey?
I'm not sure. Was restoration something that we were looking for specifically, or were we looking at restoration plans? So yes, we are looking at restoration plans, but we're not focusing on a restoration directive. I'm not sure if that answers the question correctly.
That's okay. If for clarification, we will send her email your way. We have a second question from Stephanie Donor. Do you have a preferred pathway for science knowledge / methods to be conveyed for EBM use? For example, publications, presentations, meetings, etc.
Right. So that's a really cool question. And honestly, for me to answer that, it would be purely my opinion. Our project is not condoning any particular method of ecosystem-based management. But I think that question is really interesting, talking about how to best get the science out there for ecosystem-based management, right? And I would argue that our system of disseminating science could use an overhaul for sure. I don't think that maybe scientific literature is the best way to reach a broad cross-disciplinary group, for example. But again, that's purely my own opinion.
Thank you so much, Amie. Do we have any more questions in the room? Okay, and I'm not seeing anything else online. So thank you all for tuning in. We have this recorded. The library will be hosting it on our YouTube channel shortly after this. And if you do have questions, please place them into the question panel right now and we will capture those. Or you can see Amie has her email up on the screen, and please contact her that way. And thank you all.